Morning, everyone. Welcome to our usual meeting of the Shared Regulatory Services Joint Committee. Before we start, can I please remind everyone that this meeting is being live streamed and the recording archived for future viewing. If participants wish to speak, please use the raise hand function to alert me that you would like to speak. I will indicate when it is your turn to speak, so you can then please select the request to speak button, which will allow you to come on screen. Please ensure that all debate is raised verbally, not via the chat function. Chat function should only be used to highlight any technical issues or to get the attention of myself or of Democratic Services officers. So we'll move to the agenda, quite short today, I think. So agenda item 1, apologies for absence. Does anyone have any apologies? No? In fact, I think...
Yeah, nothing provided in advance, Chair, but I've noted Councillor Diath hasn't joined us. So I'll just drop him a line in the background and I'll see if he's having problems. But at the moment, there's no apologies. Thank you, Chair.
No worries. Thanks for that, Gareth. Okay, so while we see what's happening with Councillor Diath, I'll move on to agenda item 2, some minutes of the extraordinary meeting held on the 31st of January 2024. Does anyone have anything to raise with regards to these minutes? No? In which case, could I have a mover and a seconder for the minutes? Councillor Drake?
I'll move those as a true record.
Great, thank you.
And I can second.
Thank you very much. And then moving on to item number 3, so to receive declarations of interest. Does anyone have any declarations to make on this agenda? No? If any do come up during the meeting, please do let me know and we'll make sure it's recorded in the minutes. So moving on to the substantive part of the meeting. So agenda item 4, which is a report from the Director of Environment and Housing on the overview and update report of the Shared Regulatory Services. We have an officer to present the report. Alan, morning.
Thank you, Chair, and morning, everyone. Yes, the overview and update report. So that this is looking at activities undertaken by the service since we last met, so covering the period December 2023 to February of this year, as well as a detailed look, as we'll see shortly, on Q3 performance. So, as I normally do on these occasions, I just wanted to highlight some HR matters, and starting with sickness absence, some very positive news to report for Q3. Q3, one of the winter quarters, obviously, and we tend to see a higher rate of absence during Q3. But very encouragingly, for Q3 just past, we've seen an improvement. So we're now looking at 3.99 days per full-time equivalent person of sickness overall, and 1.86 days, which is long-term absence. And that compares really favourably with long-term absence in Q3 of the previous year, which stood at 6.29. So we hope very much that that continues. Moving on to 2.2, just a mention of the fact, obviously, what was discussed and agreed at our January meeting, the implementation of budget savings going into 24-25. Work is in progress to implement those savings through deletion of some vacant posts and the other measures that we've spoken about. In implementing those deletions of posts, we are mindful that there will be some operational pinch points that we need to do our very best to alleviate. And obviously, part of that whole equation is staff well-being, the staff who are working hard in teams with posts which are no longer going to be filled. Moving on to 2.4, just an update on the regulatory apprenticeship, which we've been working on for quite some time with Welsh Government and with the awarding body more recently. So the positive news to report is that the qualification element of that regulatory apprenticeship, one hasn't existed in Wales to date, That is now at the point of sign off. And we're hopeful that before too much longer, we will be able to embrace that level 4 regulatory apprenticeship. It is an introduction to regulation and compliance. Thought then will turn to development of level 6 apprenticeships, we hope, and conversations due to start with Welsh Government on that. The advantage there, of course, is that we will be developing the environmental health officers and the training standards officers of the future in a mix of on-the-job and academic training. And as we know with apprenticeships, the big benefit to those apprentices is that they're able to enter a profession, achieve qualifications, and not run up tens of thousands of pounds of student debt. I do apologise. Can you hear the seagull that's with me? Yes.
I can. I hope he's got some sort of permit or something.
But he's
could hear it, really.
I'm in Barry, and the seagulls have joined me. They're sort of dancing on the windowsill, so I do apologise.
Don't get that
Anyway.
in civic environment.
So that was what I wanted to cover, Chair, on HR matters. So moving on to 2.5 in the report now will be the finance update, and I believe Gemma is going to cover that.
Great, thanks, Helen. Gemma, do you want to take us through the finance update?
Yes, of course. Thank you very much, Chair. I just have a few slides to take us through the finance element of the report. In summary, this sets out the position as at Q3. So overall overspend of 266,000, which is detailed in the executive summary of the report. This position does include a mitigation of 243,000, which is being drawn down from the Shared Regulatory Services reserves, which are held on the Shared Regulatory Services balance sheet, as detailed in the accounts that came before you slightly earlier this calendar year. And those will be coded into the core budget to offset some budgeted expenditure. There are some specific issues in terms of authority-specific outturn, which I'll pick up on a slightly later slide. So in terms of the core position, I think across services, there's some pressures associated with the fact that the annual salary uplift in 23-24 was slightly different than the amount that we allowed for when we were setting the budget. The table at 2.15 of the report details the kind of forecast outturn positions in the core element, and that's showing an overspend of 44,000. And again, as noted earlier, that includes that's after the drawdown from reserves that's detailed within the report. There is an additional table in 2.24 that details the value being drawn down from reserves. Okay, just moving over onto the next slide. The other element is just picking up the staffing movement. So within trading standards, there's that kind of staffing movement is a key driver between the substantial forecasted underspend. But that situation's been corrected in year, and some of those previously vacant posts have now been filled. Moving on to authority specific. Obviously, the kind of forecasted position for Cardiff reflects that kind of budgeted anomaly. Both the Vale and Bridgend's authority-specific areas for licensing follow a similar trend to Cardiff, but obviously far lesser extent. And the overall position is detailed within table 2.5 of the report. So there's an overall position of 222,000 overspend, but that situation is quite different across the various partner authorities. Just picking out some other key points in terms of authority-specific position, we're forecasting underspends within the empty homes and kennelling and vet service areas for Bridgend, and the Vale of Glamorgan's kennelling and vet service, along with pest control services, are both forecasting underspends as well. The burial service provided by the Vale is continuing to see higher than expected usage as well, So there's a small overspend there. And then just as picked up slightly earlier in the report, there is some drawdown from reserves forecast in year, and that's set out in this table that's shown here. And just detailed in this slide. So 83,000 from the trading standard element of the reserve, and that's in respect of some animal welfare seizures. And then in terms of the food services team, some spend that is addressing some backlog in the team and some additional resource required there. And those are the main points I was going to draw out on the finance element of the report, but happy to take any questions.
Great, thanks for that, Gemma. Does anyone have any questions for Gemma or Helen on the report? I mean, just one from me, probably one for Helen. Really, is, you know, we've discussed previously, and I think Gemma just reflected as well, that most budget savings that we can make in SRS tend to come from staff, because that's the nature of the service. So I think you touched on it in your report, Helen, but have we given any assessment really to the sort of morale of staff? I think it's really encouraging to see that sick days have reduced, but obviously conscious that you know, we are making cuts this year. We're quite possibly going to have to make cuts next year. So is there any sort of feedback from staff on how they're feeling and what we can do to sort of alleviate that wherever possible?
Thanks, Chair. Yes, obviously, staff well-being and morale is a huge concern for us. We, from time to time, do a dedicated SRS staff survey, and we get some really good, useful information from that. But wider than that, it's the everyday contact between team managers and teams and picking up on any concerns that may appear and helping to alleviate those. Certainly something that we'll be keeping a very close eye on, as I mentioned.
Great, thanks for that. Councillor Sivanyanam, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I mean, just really picking up on that, Reece, that, you know, morale is really important because the service is not going to survive without our existing staff. But I am really pleased about the apprenticeships, because I know that's been a baby for you, Helen, and I'm really pleased that that's taking off. And are we hopeful that we're going to fill the places? That's the other question in terms of you know, working with colleges to ensure that people are going to, you know, want to be part of this, because I know that was also an issue in terms of, you know, morale and pay and all those issues, and that's not going to improve in the very near future. We hope, you know, looking further ahead, it will. But do you feel confident that will those places, people will want to choose that as an option in terms of career young people, or older people, I guess? Really, just to say, really, you know, well done on that, because I know you've been working on that for a long time.
Thanks for that, Ruben. I think that's a really, really good question. And I think the only other thing I'd add to that is, I guess, as Ruben touched upon, I think we're very lucky in all three of the authorities to have some very good further education colleges. So it'd be really good to sort of hear how we are getting into those places and sort of encouraging the young people or the older people to take up these opportunities.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Councillor Sivanyanam, for that question. Yes, the feedback that we're getting on the creation of the apprenticeships is that there will certainly be interest, and we're able to look at the experience in England, where that regulatory apprenticeship, which has been in place since 2018, has been really, really successful. And I think with the apprenticeship comes that ability to get into schools and colleges to actually engage with younger people and increase the visibility of environmental health and trading standards as careers, because excellent careers they are, but they tend not to be so much on the radar in terms of younger people's aspirations. So this will be a great way for us to work with local training providers, local schools to raise that awareness and hopefully attract people into a really good career, and through that level 4 apprenticeship getting an excellent foundation.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, I know we're seeing in Bridgend, the sort of grow your own model, when it works well, works really, really well. And you create members of staff who are really passionate about being part of the service. So I think that's really welcome and really positive to hear. Do we have any more questions on this part of the report from members? No? Okay. I don't know, do we have any more officers presenting from this report, Helen? So I think there are more parts to it.
Yes, Chair. So we're moving on to 2.6 now, which is performance monitoring. I'll probably just tee this up, if I may, and then pass to Christina and Will, who will take us through the tables. But just a shout out, really, in respect of food visits and catching up on the food programme. We've updated members on this for quite some time as we recovered from the backlog that we experienced following COVID, and working through that FSA recovery plan. You'll see when Christina presents the tables that we are seeing a much improved picture in terms of clearing that backlog. But again, it is just to stress really that has been achieved through the use of contractors assisting our officers in delivering on that programme, and they have done a superb job. And of course, that use of contractors on a per visit basis, it comes at a cost. So it's just to put into context the results that you will see for Q3 in terms of the use of contractors to support that. So if I could pass you back now to Christina, and then she'll be able to pick up the first part of the performance table.
Great. Thanks, Helen. Christina? Do we have Christina?
She has joined us, Chair. Christina, are you okay to press a request to speak button, please? And that should take you to come on screen. There we go. Thank you.
There we go. Apologies. I'm so used to Teams, as we all are.
Don't get me started about this system, Christina, honestly. Carry on.
Yeah, so thanks, Chair, and morning, everyone. And as highlighted by Helen, here really at this point just to share the latest performance information in respect of food and trading standards services. So at this point in the year, of course, we're nearly there in terms of end of financial year, but we're reporting today what's going on in Q3, and there's been significant improvement thereon as well. So I wanted really, before conveying the performance that's being reported at this meeting, just to go back to our requirements in terms of the Food Standards Agency and the Food Standards Agency Code of Practice, which is in effect our Bible when it comes to how we deliver a food service. And that mandates our statutory duties in terms of what we have to achieve in terms of a programme of food interventions. So that isn't an optional thing for us to do in terms of the food service. They actually set out the required frequency based on premises and risk associated with that. So really just want to put that in the forefront of your mind again. Of course, at the beginning of the financial year, we write the Food Law Enforcement Service Plan, and we detail the difference of staff that we have in post and compared to what we need in terms of a shortfall to achieve that full requirement of the Code of Practice. And as you know, there is a significant shortfall for us to deliver that full amount. So yeah, really just to say, we don't have a choice in terms of what we have to do with the Food Standards Agency. We are mandated to do these food visits in this way. So because of COVID and historic, we've kept you sort of in the loop in terms of what we've done, first of all, in terms of the recovery plan and how we've dealt with the backlog. And this year really has been the use of getting back on top of things and getting back into the normal flow of the programme itself. So if I may, I'd like to call on Democratic colleagues just to share the performance slides so that I can talk through those slides to members. If you scroll down, I think the first page with detail is in relation to category A and B premises.
Sorry, technical fault with my computer. Just bear with me one moment, please.
No problem.
Sorry, I can't get it to come onto my screen. Helen, do you want to try it on your device? Or Christina, I'm stuck with this. Sorry, I'll keep trying. But if you want to keep talking, I'll see if I can get on the screen when it's available. Sorry about this.
No problem. I'm mindful that members will, of course, have had this information in any case. So it may be worth me using my information, just talking you through the results as I see it and taking any questions. So apologies, members. We like to pop it up on screen for you. But of course, the first page is in relation to category A and B related premises, which of course is our higher risk premises in terms of the inspection programme. And you'll see that apart from one visit that was partially completed in Bridgend, we're green in the other areas and forecasting to be at 100% at the end of the financial year. The second slide there is the high risk food hygiene inspections, which are actually a category C. And again, real improvement in terms of performance there. We're now up into the 80s and hitting at the amber colour, which is better than the red that we've previously been reporting. But again, I'm really seeing significant progress there in terms of the visits being undertaken by officers and contractors as explained. In terms of the new businesses, which is at the next slide, although we are presenting it as red, you'll see that we are hitting 75, 71 and 74%. So again, a real concerted effort being made and significant progress also. And interestingly, the broadly compliant figures for all three areas are looking good, which means that in terms of serious non-compliances, it is those small majority of premises, albeit those premises where we do need to take enforcement action. Of course, you'll appreciate takes a lot of time in terms of getting that right. In terms of trading standards, you can see there is a red RAG status there in terms of Bridgend, but we're anticipating that we will get there come the end of the financial year in terms of 100%. And new businesses, again, you will have heard me speak previously in terms of officers from food hygiene doing both trading standards and hygiene visits. And unfortunately, some of the contractors that we've employed are not able to do the trading standards element. So we're on a bit of a catch up there. But trading standards colleagues are making great improvements in terms of narrowing that gap for new businesses. So in terms of performance, I think that is it from my perspective. So handing over to Will, but happy to take any questions in terms of that food performance before I hand over.
Great, thanks for that, Christina. I think it's really positive that we are getting there and catching up. I know it's been a hard slog, but it's really good that we're seeing those results now. Do any members have any questions for Christina before we move on to Will? No, all happy? Cool. Okay, thanks, Christina. Will, do you want to take over? Oh, you're on mute, Will.
Apologies. I'm too used to Teams as well. So just rushing through these really because I'll do it on an exception basis, given they're not on the screen. Members will have read that the noise and air pollution stats are positive. So we monitor performance in relation to domestic and commercial noise complaints, response times, as well as things like property alarms, and they're all showing green. So that's positive. Moving to licensing, there were 3 applications actually, unusually, which were outside of the statutory 28-day legal limit, and that was due to industrial action by Cardiff staff who belonged to Unite, which meant that those committees couldn't go ahead. So outside of the purview of the SRS, but the rest of our licensing performance targets were met comfortably. Finally, for my area, members will recall we have started to report this year on the work to improve energy efficiency standards in the private rented sector. And that's continued in the last quarter with a total of 118 properties engaged with directly by SRS, which resulted in improvements to the APC. So that's a positive stat. Just for members to know, moving forward, there is a piece now of project work being developed by our trading standards colleagues who sit within Christina's portfolio to review the enforcement needs for some properties where we've tried to engage and we haven't had the required results. So that's a work in progress because it does require additional resource to that which we currently have. But it is obviously something we're keen to do to ensure compliance with the legislation. So that's going to be reported back to members in probably the next joint committee in the progress we've made there. So that is a positive piece of work, the MEES, and it's just a matter of reviewing it and taking it forward now. So that was my little bit. Chair, happy to take any questions.
Great, thanks for that, Will. Just one from me. I think it's really positive that we're now having those inspections on energy efficiency within homes. I guess one of the things for me, and I know Helen and I have talked about it previously, is I think a lot of residents, certainly within Bridgend, I don't know about the other 2 authorities, aren't always aware that actually they have recourse to SRS in terms of housing standards. And it would just be good to know what we think we can do more to sort of promote to residents that if they are concerned and they're not getting responses, say from an RSL or a private landlord, that they do have recourse to SRS to investigate and to make sure that things are brought up to the housing standards.
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's something we do review periodically. I mean, in some discrete areas that we serve, such as Cardiff, where we have a massive student population, we've got discrete programs there where we've worked with the universities to try and tap into the sort of networks that exist there. In more general, across the SRS, we obviously rely on our publicity. So we've got our websites, which we do review and make clear that we are there to assist. I think a lot really is through member engagement as well, because members are often the first point of contact where tenants are not having joy with their landlord or their RSL in how they're how they feel their property is being managed. And so we do get a lot of referrals that way. We also work closely with Rent Smart Wales, who do spend a lot of time engaging in publicity about the work that they do, and we have very close links with them, and we do get referrals through that way as well. But it is something we review continuously, and certainly if there are additional means by which we can get the message out that people can complain if they're unhappy, then we'd be happy to look at that.
Great. Thanks for that, Will. So I have a couple of members wishing to come in. So Councillor Lewis, would you like to come in first?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I just want to say that I've had cause to speak to Will on occasions regarding residents of my area, and the information that's been given has been fantastic, and I was able to pass that information on. Also, I had concerns with a letting agent, which Will has dealt with as well. So the service is fantastic. So thanks for that, Will.
Thank you, Councillor, and I'll certainly pass that message to the team. That's well received. Thank you.
Great. Good to hear members are getting their bucks worth out of you, Will. Councillor Simonian.
So on that point of sort of publicity of the service, I think what we don't do enough, and I think the Vale as a council, we don't do enough of it, and I'm not sure how it is for Cardiff and Bridgend, but we don't shout out enough about our good news stories. So that in some ways it would be a good way of, promoting the service in terms of, and maybe we could do that in coordinating with Steve in our comms could communicate with Cardiff and Bridgend as well, just to kind of promote it, through a good news story. And then my other point really was around pollution. I'm just curious. I'm not sure that we, as sort of local authority organisations, sort of do it to that level. But do we have any indication whether the 20 mile an hour limit has affected pollution, adversely or otherwise? I hope it positively. And I should say that I'm all for the 20 mile an hour limit.
Well, I am straying into another operational manager's portfolio now, in that Jason Bale deals with
yes, of course,
kind of standard air quality management and planning. And obviously he's there, welcome to come in. But I might say, and I'm going to pass over to Jason, it may be a little early to have seen that effect, but I'm happy to have to be shown to the contrary by Jason. But I'll leave that one for Jason.
Thanks, Will. Jason?
Yeah, thanks, Will. Thanks, Councillor. Yeah, as Will says, obviously they only came in fully in force mid to end of September. So we'll need at least a full year's data set to be able to assess that. But I think provisionally looking at some of the data we've had from last year, there are improvements across the board for NO2 concentrations, but I wouldn't want to specifically say that is directly related to the 20 mile an hour, and we'll have to take a further review and assessment on that in the coming year or so, really.
Great, thanks for that, Jason. Do we have any more questions for members before we move on? No? Okay, do we know who's next up? Christina, it's back to you.
It's back to me now, Chair. Just for some public health type updates for you. And excuse me, looking to my left, I've got a bigger screen that I can see a little bit better on that one. So the first update really is in relation to the health protection team. You'll recall that SRS during COVID, we had a team working with the health board in relation to really looking after higher risk settings and managing COVID-19. That team is very much still in place, and we've received the go-ahead for funding for next year. But that has sort of grown in the type of work that it's been doing, and it really looks at communicable disease in an all-hazard type way. So we're working very closely with the health board in relation to that. And the update in this report talks about the Cardiff and Vale Health Protection Plan, which has been developed by the Health Board, talks about how we work in partnership to mitigate risks and how heavily we feature in that plan. So for information only, really, good to see that we are very much a trusted partner in that organisation, and for us that funding will continue in terms of the work that's being carried out, and that's guaranteed for another 12 months. That gives us opportunity to look at other sort of health protection type measures and use those members of staff to benefit our service as well. So just a little bit of information there in relation to the Health Protection Partnership. The second update I have is in relation to sunbed safety, and a really interesting project here from our Communicable Disease and Health and Safety team. Now, the programme X-Ray did a little bit of an expose in relation to premises in Cardiff, where an allegation was made in relation to sort of test purchases for those under 18s. So that really gave us some intelligence to do a all SRS project in terms of compliance in relation to the use of sunbed safety. We all, of course, know the public health risks or the increased risks that are there in terms of using sunbeds. And of course, the legislation in this project is all about how businesses act responsibly in terms of managing those risks, and of course, making sure that those users understand the health conditions or health risk conditions associated with their use, and some of the things that they can do to mitigate those risks. So the project was very successful. The report in front of you details the outcomes and what's happened. Now, we did have one premise, which was in the Bridgend area, which did result in a prosecution for non-compliances, and that will be detailed further on in our prosecution update. But overall, as you can see from the report, some good compliance is found, but of course, lots of advice and education in terms of this area to ensure that those are regulated in the right way. So it's been a while since we did that kind of project, but certainly a worthwhile intervention from our perspective. And the last update from me, and I'm happy to take questions after that, is in relation to special procedures. You'll recall that one of our team managers, Sarah Swayson, came and gave you a presentation previously. The special procedures is going to be a new regime. The implementation date it looks as though it has been pushed back to October. And for us, there's lots of planning and work to be undertaken in order to put everything in place. And that work really affects my teams, but also Will's teams in terms of a licensing perspective, because of course the regime will go through licensing committee. But really, for information from our perspective in relation to a second consultation that's currently out at the moment, we are doing an SRS response as well as a response through our respective expert panels. But to give you an update as to the timeline in terms of implementation is currently October. So, as I said, lots of arrangements to put in place and lots of work to be done on that. So, yeah, really a public health theme for me there today, but happy to take any questions in terms of those updates, Chair.
Thank you, Christina. Just one from me, really. I know the sunbeds aren't included in the new special procedures regime, but obviously I think a lot of venues that will have the new special procedures regulation will probably have sunbeds. Now, we looking at making sure that we sort of join up that work, that when officers are attending those new venues that will need to be regulated, that we're also taking that opportunity to educate and to check those sunbeds for compliance.
Yeah, absolutely. We try and make every contact count, Councillor. So for me, it's looking at that holistic element of what those traders in that beauty industry do. But you're absolutely right. It's that sort of beauty sector that does have the sunbeds as well as the aesthetics type of work as well. So yeah, we will absolutely be making sure, as I said, every contact counts. We'll look at things from a holistic nature when visiting those premises.
Great, thank you for that. Councillor Drake, you wanted to come in?
Yes, about the sunbeds. I don't know how many we've actually got in the Vale of Glamorgan at the moment. I think they've gone down a bit. I don't seem to see as many as we used to have. And also, we had a presentation yesterday on licensing for the new special procedures regulations, which was very, very interesting. And I would recommend that to anybody to listen to it. It was very, very good.
Thank you for that, Councillor Drake. Of course, it's always sunny in the Vale, so you don't need sunbeds, I would imagine. And in fact, if there is some training on the special procedures, I think members in Bridgend would be interested in that. So I don't know whether that would be possible to have that shared.
Yeah, that is something that is actually happening, or may have even happened if Councillor Lewis was going to come in there. It's something that was being organised by Dr. Jones as well. So
great. Yes, entirely possible I've missed it. Councillor Lewis, did you want to come in?
Yeah, we did have that last month, Reese.
Totally
and it was very interesting and something that we all support. So
great. Thank you for that, Councillor Lewis. Any other questions for Christina on public health? No? Okay, thank you for that, Christina. Will, are we back to you? No? Who's next?
Yep. Yes, it's me. Very briefly, just something on empty homes. So members will recall from previous update reports the work the teams do to tackle issues with empty homes in the private sector. So I suppose a significant update for members is that the SRS have successfully recruited an officer into the neighbourhood services team to provide additional resource to the Vale of Glamorgan. So that money has been funded through the council tax premium. And it's a real positive and means we can now provide a complete service across the SRS. Sorry, I'm having a bit of trouble with my IT here. I got it back. So 2.16 and 17 of the report details the approach taken by the SRS in liaising with colleagues in other service areas in housing, council tax, planning and legal services in order to provide a whole authority approach to the empty homes problem. So this will include extensive engagement with owners, signposting to grant schemes that are available, and finally, in circumstances where we haven't been able to effect a change, to targeted enforcement of the most problematic sites. So on the next page, the report includes a number of images relating to two properties, which provide some examples of the type of properties that the teams deal with, and the before and after photographs. So the first two lines are from a property in Canton in Cardiff, which is a mid-terrace two-storey property. It had been vacant since 2010, and although superficially it appeared only in mild disrepair from the street, the rear was in a very poor structural condition, and it was extensively overgrown as well. It required extensive repairs, including the complete demolition of the rear annex. And after much work by the team, it eventually went through the CPO process, which is the compulsory purchase order process, which can be quite an involved and technical process involving a number of different sort of service areas. And that eventually resulted in a complete refurbishment by the new owner, and it's now being rented out to a private tenant. The second property is again from Cardiff and is in a densely occupied area of the city. It had been vacant since 2008 and was attracting severe vandalism and ASB, and was certainly of concern to local members. Now, the team served notice, and in that case, undertook works in default, and through a process then of debt recovery, this eventually led to an enforced sale of the property and the property was occupied again last year by a number of tenants. So they are just two examples of properties that have been improved recently, but I could have included many more examples of success stories, including in Bridgend, for instance, where there's been a lot of progress in bringing back some high-profile sites into beneficial use, some of which have been vacant for many years. And through the work with the Vale of Glamorgan and the new resource we've got there, I'm sure that we'll be able to report back some examples in the Vale as well. So moving forward, that resource will allow us to provide that holistic service to the three authorities, and hopefully we'll be able to bring back some more examples in the future. So happy to take any questions, Chair.
Great, thanks for that. Well, I know certainly in Bridgend, I think one example we've had is in my stay, where there was a long-term unused flat and shop front, and it's been a real positive in the community. I know that since the work has been done there, so it's very, very welcome, and I think it's something that all members would be interested in hearing more about. So when we do have more information about that, I think it'd be great to bring it back to the committee. Do we have any questions, members? No? Okay, cool. Let's move on then. Who's up next? Or have we come to the end of the report? No, Jason, air quality.
Yeah.
Jason,
could be a couple of updates from my area, Chair. So looking at... sorry, I got my sound quality is a bit poor. So protecting the environment, just looking at the air quality reports that we've taken to each of the three respective cabinets as part of our statutory duties. So Bridgend, the 2023 annual progress report provided an update on the air quality monitoring in Bridgend, primarily focusing still on Park Street, where we've still got exceedances at the NO2 air quality standard there. So 2 locations still exceeding the 40 micrograms per meter cubed annual average limit, and those 2 locations recording 47 and 45 on that year in 2022. Looking at the results provisionally for last year now, which we will be reporting the 2024 report, we have seen a further improvement on Park Street, and we will be hopefully taking the air quality action plan to the April Cabinet to get that finalised and taken forward. In Cardiff, the annual progress report showed of 135 monitoring locations in Cardiff, that all of those locations for NO2 showed compliance to the annual objective, which again shows the improvements that have been achieved in Cardiff, with all the AQMAs, air quality management areas in Cardiff, also showing compliance, although there was one location in the Llandaff, which is close to the limit value at 39, and we'll be keeping a close eye and looking at potential other measures that may have to be implemented in Llandaff. Although again, provisional results for 2023 have shown an improvement at that location, and will be reported in full in next year's report. And also the report also gave an update on the work being undertaken on the Castle Street project in Cardiff, where a final plan has now been submitted to Welsh Government, and we're waiting for final feedback from Welsh Government, which is expected by the end of this month, although that may be slightly delayed with the new First Minister and other ministers being appointed. And finally, then just for the Vale of Glamorgan on the air quality report, again, all monitoring locations within the Vale showed compliance with the annual objective for NO2 and the short-term objective as well. So air quality continuing showing good quality in the Vale. And the report also just gave an update that we're installing some additional monitoring locations following a successful bid to the Welsh Government's Local Air Quality Management Support Fund. So 5 additional real-time monitors will be installed to improve the monitoring capabilities within the Vale. Moving forward, members, we reminded that in the last update report in December, we advised that the XL bully ban was going to be coming in place, and that ban has now come into full effect, with the two sort of parts of it coming into force. The first one being at the end of December, and then the full ban coming in place by the end of January, and taking effect from the 1st of February, where dogs had to be, any XL bullies had to be fully applied for certification of exemption. And all that requirements are in place. So this has put some additional pressures on us in terms of we're having to work with the police for any sort of strays that potentially are XL bullies that are coming in and are not claimed, as in terms of typing those dogs before making any decision on them. Basically, and we're working with the police to put appropriate arrangements in place there. Just moving forward then to supporting the local economy and some of the work we do with our primary authority. So members will be familiar with the primary authority principle. This allows business to enter into statutory partnerships with us, and through these partnerships we can offer insured advice for those businesses. This allows businesses to undertake work in such partnerships, and we do this on a cost recovery basis. And just giving one update, that we've increased our partnerships from an additional 2 partnerships in Q3. And one of those partnerships, and an exciting partnership really, is with the Pub J Marstons, who have over 200 pubs in Wales, and around 60 of those actually within the SRS region. Final update then for myself is just on the training provision we provide. So it's a key area of work that we undertake to support local businesses. And so we offer accredited and non-accredited training courses to businesses. In Q3, we provided 12 overall training courses, and those range from level 1 and level 2 food safety courses, and also the special procedures, infection prevention and control for special procedures practitioners, which is a training course they have to undertake before they can apply for the license when the legislation comes in place later on this year. And then paragraph 2.37 really is just sort of giving an overview of the full range of courses that we provide to businesses. And you can see that there's a list of 12 courses that we now provide, basically, and just really showing how we've moved from where we were when we first came to fruition in 2015, where we provided limited number of food safety training courses, and now have the full range of courses that we provide. And one of the areas we're going to be looking at is updating and promoting our training page on our website, basically to try and encourage and uptake more training courses to businesses, and really put the promotion of the training we provide really. And we've provided the link to the training course webpage there in the report. And we just want to encourage members to, advise any other internal departments and schools to always approach SRS when regulatory training is needed, have been identified and needed, as the courses we provide have a full range that we can provide really. So that's my update. So happy to take any questions from members there.
I don't know whether we lost the chair.
He's still there. Councillor Good, he's still there. Thanks.
It is totally my fault. It's the right big red button. Sorry about that. So I'll start again. So Jason, thank you for that. We passed our replacement LDP last week at full council, and one of the questions that was raised by local members in Bridgend was around Park Street. The new developments would have an impact on the improvements we've seen on air quality. At the meeting, I did raise the fact that the LDP was a strategic document, and therefore all planning decisions would still go through planning, and therefore be part of a consideration would be air quality. But I was wondering if you could quickly sort of run us through how that would work to make sure, I understand their concerns that more houses would increase traffic and therefore increase or rather reduce air quality. And then second to that, on the XL bully issue, I think I'm right in saying that originally we believed that South Wales Police would be partners in this and actually would identify those dogs, and therefore it wouldn't come to SRS to process them. And I'm now told that may not be the case. And I just wondered what representations we're making to South Wales Police to make sure that actually they hold up their end of the bargain, because I don't think it's particularly right that a law has been put in place and SWP are sort of saying, well, it's not our problem, it's council's problem. And I think we need to make very strong representations to them to make sure that that doesn't get landed with this service rather than with the responsible legal officers.
Yeah, so just taking the first question on the LDP. So as part of the modelling work we would have done for the Air Quality Action Plan, Councillor Good, we take into account into future developments and project forward, into the years of compliance. So some of those proposed developments will be assessed in those, but then also as they come through, as you rightly say, they come through full planning applications, we will be able to condition and request, any that looking like the impact on Park Street, that full air quality assessments are undertaken. And then it'll be up to the developer to demonstrate the impacts of the air quality on that and put any mitigations to alleviate any potential increases in air pollution on that. And we would be subject to statutory consultation through that process, really. So we'd be reviewing and assessing those applications as and when they come through and making appropriate comments and requesting appropriate conditions to mitigate any potential increases in air pollution from those developments. Turning to the XL bully question, yeah, it is an ongoing discussion. I think I can call it. The guidance that came from DEFRA when the legislation came into place clearly stated that all XL bullies, we must liaise with the police departments, dog legislation officers, and it was up to them that they must be consulted on typing any dogs. There has been therefore some movement on that really from the police, really just given the potential, obviously therefore the stretch in terms of resources and dealing with other police matters. But we are in discussions through Directors of Public Health, Environmental Health Wales, Training Standards Wales, and with Welsh Government in discussing with the police to get further support on that, so that we work in a partnership on this. We've definitely got a commitment from South Wales Police that they will be looking to assist in typing dogs if an owner is coming forward, and will be assisting as and when they can where there isn't an owner and it is a stray that is not being claimed. And we will just work with them and get further partnership agreement going forward on that, really. But Welsh Government is agreeing to meet with the police chiefs on this to get a formal sort of almost MOU on this, to get a formal agreement on how that is to be taken forward.
Great, thanks for that, Jason. Councillor Drake, did you want to come in there?
Yes, I just wanted to thank Jason for these updates on the reports, but I just wanted to make a comment on the XL bully thing. I was walking down Houghton Road the other day, and there was a young gentleman walking towards me with an XL bully, fully harnessed, and it had a muzzle on it. But you could see the dog pulling on this lead, and he was had difficulty holding it back. You can see how strong these dogs are, and it's quite worrying. I have never had dogs myself, but I'm not frightened of them. But quite honestly, I was quite weary. Even though he had a muzzle on, you just wanted to move away from it.
Thank you for that, Councillor Drake.
Yeah,
and I think that shows why the legislation has been put in place, I guess. Jason, is there anything you want to come back on there?
No, just obviously, if it was an XL bullying, glad it was muzzled and the person is complying with the legislation and didn't commit an offence there, really. But obviously, if that was a scenario where the dog wasn't muzzled and you were of the view that it potentially was an XL bully, obviously from that perspective is an offence under the Dangerous Dogs Act, and that is where it should be referred to the police and probably called through on 101, really, because we aren't enforcing that part of the legislation. That is with the police. So any offences under the Dangerous Dogs legislation, it is to be enforced by the police, really. Just want to reiterate that.
Great, thanks for that, Jason. I'm not sure, do we have any more of this report to go through, Helen?
It's just back to me now, Chair.
Thanks, Jason. Helen?
Lovely, thank you, Chair. So we're on 2.41, just to give you a very quick outline of the latest Trading Standards Impacts and Outcomes report. This is something that we've brought to Joint Committee for the last couple of years to show the impact that Trading Standards across Wales has, and to reflect the input into that data that is contributed by SRS. So a slightly different take this year. All the detail is in Appendix 4. Worth taking a little look if members have time. Some really useful information in there. But building on something which Jason was talking about earlier in 2.32, above in the report, on primary authority, I think it's quite impactful to see that across the whole of Wales, there were 75 primary authority partnerships. We know that SRS leads the way on the primary authority principle, but it's great to see that 45% of those primary authority partnerships are actually with SRS. And then the other statistic which jumped out, which is connected, is the fact that of all the hours advice given across Wales to primary authority businesses, 58% of those hours of advice were given by SRS. So really nice to see. Next year we'll look at some other stats, but I just thought it was useful to draw that out a little bit different for members. Happy to take any questions if there are at impacts and outcomes. If not, I'll move on to the last section we wanted to cover.
Anyone want to come in on that? No, I don't think so. Helen, feel free to move on.
Wonderful. So the last section for members, 2.43, enforcement activity, and this is all set out for you in Appendix 5. We've reported for a number of years really that post-COVID there were some bottlenecks in the court process, but we're noticing it's really quite noticeable at the moment that cases are coming through thick and fast out of the court process. So since we last met, looking at the period of the start of December to the end of February, 16 cases have concluded in prosecutions, all successful. And it's interesting, if you have time to look through, the prosecution outcomes reflect the broad range of different areas of work that are provided by the shared service. So we've got unlicensed taxi drivers, we've got an overcharge on a Hackney carriage fare. Case number 3 in the schedule is empty property, so that links with what Will was updating on earlier. Case number 6 is on sunbed safety, and Christina mentioned the survey that initiated that work. So nice to see that that case concluding in court. We've got successful prosecutions on illegal vapes and underage vape sales. One that's a little bit different is on illegal transport of animals, and also a breach of a disqualification order under the Animal Welfare Act. And this was a gentleman who was disqualified, an illegal dog breeder, and unfortunately for him, he was caught in possession of dogs and trying to sell puppies. So another successful case there. There are a number of quite major rogue builder cases within that 16 that I mentioned, and looking across those 3 cases, the results were a total of 16 months in suspended sentences and 3 years and 9 months in prison sentence. So some really successful conclusions to those cases, and of course the relief for the residents affected by those rogue builders, that those cases have now concluded. You'll notice as well there are some quite significant fines in relation to the private rented sector, and particularly in relation to conditions, very poor conditions in houses in multiple occupation. So cases 7, 10, 15 and 16 reflect those. And remarkably, the total value of the fines across those 4 cases is a touch under £70,000, which is quite remarkable. And then The other cases I wanted to mention quickly are in relation to food hygiene. So this links back to the update that Christina was giving us earlier on progress with our food programme, but also the sheer amount of work that's involved for officers when problems are found in food premises, and a full investigation and report have to be compiled. So I'll just draw members' attention to cases number 5 and number 8 in the schedule, both food hygiene prosecutions. The first of them, case number 5, this is a gentleman who was managing a food business, absolutely dreadful hygiene conditions there. He actually had some previous convictions in relation to food hygiene, so the court took a very dim view. So as well as a 6-month suspended prison sentence and a fine, he is now subject to a hygiene prohibition order, which means that he cannot take part in the running of a food business in the future. So a really positive outcome there. And then case number 8, another food hygiene case. This is a case where, again, some dreadful conditions were identified by officers, including really poor cleanliness and a very bad pest infestation, which resulted in confectionery products on the shelves in the shop having been gnawed by the rodents. So officers took action there to get a voluntary closure on the premises while the pest proofing and the cleaning up took place. And only a couple of days later, it was identified that the business had breached that voluntary closure agreement, and that necessitated officers getting a formal order through the courts to enforce the closure until matters were rectified. And the result of that case is a £10,900 fine after 16 offences were laid against that business. So some really impressive outcomes, and it's all credit to the hard work of officers and the legal support officer that we have actually managing these cases through the system, and of course the great partnership working we have with the 3 legal services across the 3 partner authorities. So more than happy to take any questions on that, Chair. A little bit more of a detailed run through than I normally would, but thought it was important for you to see just the breadth and the quality of the work that that's been coming through recently.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Helen. I think as members always reflect, I think we're always pleased to hear about these really positive pieces of work that officers are doing. And I think we all know that the huge amount of hard work that goes into them and the really positive outcomes for residents. So, I think all of the committee would want to send our thanks to all the officers for all of this hard work. Do we have any members who want to come in there to ask any questions or add any comments? No? Okay. Right. Is that the end of the report, Helen?
That's the end, Chair. Just the recommendation remains now.
Great. Okay, so I'll take members to the recommendation. Could I have a mover and a seconder for the report?
I'll move, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. And could I have a seconder? Councillor Drake?
I'll second that.
Excellent. Thank you both. So that's that report done. Then on to agenda item 5, any urgent items. I haven't received any urgent items, and I don't believe we have any more reports. So I think that brings us to the end of business for the meeting today. So thank you for all members and officers who attended and presented today. And we'll see you all, I think, in a couple of months' time, in June, I think. So I'll see you guys then. Thank you all, and thank you all for coping with the new online system, which is a treat. Thank you all. See you all soon.
Thank you very much.